I was surprised to learn that there is actually a delegation from a country, Zambia, coming to Kenya to learn about corruption. I don't know whether they are coming to learn about fighting corruption or they are coming to learn about how to do corruption. Mr. Speaker, this is appalling. This is a mess. Mr. Speaker, in other countries, you go, I have kept saying, you go to other countries to say, we have come here to learn how some of these best practices. They tell you the best practices are in blueprint in Kenya. They tell you we have actually copied this best practice from Kenya. Now, we have assembling plants here. We are able to do it, but just because of corruption, we send that business to another country. Mr. Speaker, this should not be allowed. We seem to have money for all the wrong reasons, but we never have money for the right reasons in this country. We have money for scandals. We have money for catwalking. We have money for the ngiritas, but we have money for air, but we don't have money for everybody else in this country. Mr. Speaker, we strongly should support this, and we should actually, as a Senate, talk loud about this and stop this, whatever is going to happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Masizo, Naomi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support this statement with Senator Nyamunga. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is sad to hear that there is such a business going on in Kenya, or there's such a business that it wants to take place in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, more goods and services are manufactured in Kenya here, and it is the highest time market for such goods and services should be found in this country so as to improve the economy. Mr. Speaker, if you hear that such goods are being imported or such services are being imported, then you feel like this is actually dissecting Kenya and to finish Kenya's economy completely. Mr. Speaker, it is the highest time as senators we need to actually to condemn this act, and we need to look forward for the market, and even those people and those systems that are involved to look for the market for this for the goods or for these vehicles that we are manufacturing in Kenya, other than looking for importation. Mr. Speaker, corruption has taken roots in Kenya, and it is the highest time, because if you look at this, it always indicates that there is somebody somewhere who wants to consume money somewhere using these dubious means. So I stand to support this statement by saying that whoever that is concerned, whoever that is the government sector that is concerned with this should stop this act and try to look for the market for the same for the Kenyans good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Mbito.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support Senator Nyamunga's statement. This is a very clear case of impunity. We have the same buses here in Kenya, and a chief executive or accounting officer just unilaterally opts to import them. They need to tell us what their interests are, because that is a very, very clear case of impunity. We've had cases of governors who decide to procure test kits that are available for free. Donors have given us test kits, but the governor decides to purchase it, knowing very well that whoever is supplying it is stealing it from the facilities that have already been supplied. So those cases of impunity, Mr. Speaker, should be addressed. And for the case, for this particular case, whoever made this decision should be answerable, should tell us why and how they reached that decision, and really convince this House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Halake Abishiro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support Senator Nyamunga's statement, and also the committal to a committee to take this further, because I think, as other senators have said, this is just this is not just an omission; it's a commission of something that really definitely is not right. We sat here and listened to the president outline his strategic direction, and one of the key strategic areas of focus was manufacturing. And all of us, as we understood, were then to rally around these 4 agenda items, strategic priority items, one of which was manufacturing. Now, if we're going to import such basic things as buses that have been manufactured in this country, even for neighboring countries, as has been enumerated, then really something is wrong, and it does point, as others have said, to the corrupt practices that have really permeated all the sectors that of our country. Now, one of the things that that really bogs my mind is if they had said maybe they were importing from Germany or some such place, and therefore they had a very good reason on account of perhaps safety, or on account of durability, or on account of all other things that we've known perhaps German cars to represent, then perhaps somebody would have thought, okay, maybe there's something. But South Africa, I don't know if South Africa is known for its motor vehicle industry, and therefore on all accounts, I think this points to something fishy. This points to something that, as has been said, corrupt, and therefore Senator Nyamunga didn't say which ministry was importing, but I think we must get to the bottom of this and make sure that every aspect of this is looked into with a view to ensuring that we are watching and we are the stewards of the resources of this country, and therefore cannot just let these things just pass, because it's these things that then end up building to bigger things. In this country, Mr. Speaker, we have come to accept these kinds of things as normal, and we have normalized corruption as just the done thing. And in fact, I'm surprised that anybody would be coming to us to learn how to stop corruption when really it has become a big cancer for ourselves. But that said, I think I would like to congratulate Senator Nyamunga for really picking this out, and I think it's up to all of us to look out for all these kinds of things and ensure that these kinds of cascaded corruption is contained, and this House keeps a vigil over these kinds of things. I thank you, and I stand to support both the statement and the fact that it should be committed for further analysis and for further processing. I thank you, sir.
Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, when I first saw this statement in the order paper, I called the senator, and I was actually perplexed. We are going to be spending $5 million when you do the math to import only 30 buses. That is about 17 million shillings a bus. It's about 170,000 US dollars. We are indeed, by this action, negating the Big Four agenda. And I thank the senator for actually talking about it, that instead of creating jobs locally, instead of building our manufacturing sector, now we are obsessed with things from outside. When are we ever going to look at ourselves and say, we can do this? We can be able to build our manufacturing sector. We can be able to really help our devolved governments, give incentive to companies to come and manufacture them here. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support this motion, this statement, and I concur with the sentiments of my sister that it should actually be committed to a particular committee so that action can be able to follow. It is very, very sad. What are we going to tell the millions of our university students who are graduating yearly and they are walking in the streets, they cannot get any jobs? Mr. Speaker, sir, this is sad. And Mr. Speaker, sir, there's really no reason as to why we should keep quiet. This House has got to condemn this move by whichever department, because I didn't hear which department is proposing to import. And even if it was coming from Germany, I mean, our roads are dilapidated anyway. The vehicles which are manufactured here are much better, because at least when the company like LHS or the other one that fabricate vehicles here or assembles big buses here, they know the conditions of our roads. So I think local companies are better suited in helping us. We are now moving from China, we are going to South Africa. When are we ever going to look at ourselves and say, yes, we can? We either ask ourselves, just like Shakespeare, when he wanted to commit suicide, well, in the Hamlet story, to be or not to be, we have to ask ourselves, are we now ready to develop? Or are we always going to be looking at other countries? If Tanzania can come here and buy vehicles here, why not us? You know, we don't really value ourselves anymore, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support this statement, and I hope that even the president will not support this. Because if the president knows that this thing is going to negate his Big Four agenda, then of course, he will be the first one to say no. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support.
Senator Kajwang' Moses.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join my colleagues to support the statement by Senator Nyamunga. We forget as a country that in 1990, Kenya attempted to build its first car, which was called the Nyayo Pioneer, and about 5 prototypes were developed. Mr. Speaker, for those of us who were alive around that time, we remember that the first car could not start. President Moi attempted to start it and it stalled, and it was not such a great success. But we've poured close to 1 billion Kenya shillings in that project of coming up with a Kenyan car. 1990 to date, Mr. Speaker, is enough time for someone to become a voter. We are talking of more than 28 years down the line. As a country, we have not learned our lessons from that initial experiment. And then we went ahead and established the Numerical Machining Complex, NMC. And the mission of NMC, Mr. Speaker, says that it is set up, formed for the purpose of manufacturing motor vehicles. And the question is, how many motor vehicles has NMC ever produced? It continues to be funded and financed by taxpayers' money. It continues to gobble money. And here we are, instead of challenging NMC to give us a vehicle, we are going to South Africa to buy a car. Mr. Speaker, building a motor vehicle has been demystified. Elon Musk, the South African who migrated to America, is building electric vehicles. Elon Musk is building spaceships, which was previously the domain of Boeing and big government contractors. So, Speaker, we cannot, as a country, say that we want to achieve Big Four when you are doing this kind of ridiculous things. We had this Buy Kenya, Build Kenya mantra. We challenged the Minister for Industrialization and the government to revive it. Otherwise, there is no way we are achieving the Big Four if on food security, our maize comes from Mexico and our sugar comes from Brazil. If on healthcare, our equipment comes from the US and our doctors come from Cuba. If on manufacturing, our buses are coming from South Africa. If on housing, Mr. Speaker, all of us here, when we are building our houses, where do our tiles come from? Most likely they are not produced from kilns in Athi River. We import tiles from China. We are importing even roofing materials from the West. We must be serious as a nation, and I join my other colleagues in pushing for the government to take measures to ensure that these jobs can be done here. The guys who do the matatus that go to Isili, the matatus that go to Rongai. Mr. Speaker, it is only in Pakistan that you'll find matatus more colorful and more vibrant than the Kenyan matatus. I believe that Kenya has a capacity to build these buses. Already there is a company that is doing it for the Tanzanian government. We must resist this flight of capital. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.